Welcome to the Clarity Advisor Show, where you'll learn how to grow your team today. Join Ken Trupke and his guests as they discuss what works and doesn't work to grow your team in today's world. And now, your host, Ken Trupke.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Clarity Advisor Show. Have you thought about starting your own business? And maybe it's a business where you're going to advise people or help people about doing something that you know how to do really well. Well, my guest today is an expert when it comes to lead generation, that is, finding customers. And he's looking for buyers and teaches companies to look for buyers. So he's not selling anything and he doesn't teach you to sell, although it is sales. So Joe Pons has been doing his own consulting firm for a number of years after an extensive career in the military and law enforcement, and he pivoted to start his own firm. So he's got a lot of wisdom to share, and if you're looking to grow your team and grow your sales in your team, Joe's your guy. So please help me welcome Joe Pons. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ken. Pleasure to be here.
Great. Yeah, great to have you. Thanks so much for joining us. So tell us a little bit about who you serve now with Pons Consulting. Who's your customer and what do you do for them?
Ideally, sales professionals, anyone who sells, and that's a lot of people, whether they realize it or not. CEOs, executives, business owners. The fact is most people, before they can sell, they need to generate better quality leads and figure out who their target market is. And that's what I specialize in.
Yeah, for sure. We've talked about this before, that businesses typically fail, and the statistics I think are around cash flow. They run out of cash, but the reason they're running out of cash, in my experience, is they ran out of sales. They ran out of customers, and the customers are bringing in the cash to keep it going. And when that pipeline dries up, bad things. So what makes you unique, and how do you go about teaching that business of generating leads and growing sales?
Well, outside of the business, I used to sell jail, and that was one of the things that I was taught early on in law enforcement. The fact is that you got to find buyers, right? No one likes the stereotypical high pressure car salesman who runs out to you and tells you what kind of car you need to purchase. What I do is I help people not make sales a 5-letter word. Being a salesperson is it's a great thing. Nothing moves without sales. But before we get into that, you need to know to whom you are selling. Ideally, like you said, we find buyers. We're not trying to convince anyone to do anything outside of that. And that's where I had no idea I was going to be in business for myself a decade ago, and got the opportunity through a friend of the family. Started my own business, and it's been boots on the ground ever since.
That's
learning how to do that. What's that?
Yeah, well, you said, sorry, you caught my attention with, I used to sell jail. What is that about?
My first field training officer, this is back, I don't know if I want to say that, many moons ago, he told me that what we sell is jail. The fact is that you can lock up anyone, but some people have to be not so much convinced, but understand what they've done. And his name was Danny. He's like, look, we don't get paid to wrestle. Okay. You got Hulk Hogan and you got those wonderful people who do that as a league. We're not paid to do that. So if you can simply use your tongue, get your mind right, you can effectively do what you need to do without conflict. And at that time, I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. Over the years, it applies to just about everything in life. We as human beings, some people thrive on conflict. I'm not that person. The idea is to reduce conflict down to nothing if you can. And what I'm seeing now within companies is that conflict is almost the rule of law. And you've got a fantastic organization. You've got some talented people who are doing the right thing. Sadly, they can't get along with each other. And you as a CEO understand that sometimes it turns into, kindergarten. Go to your room. You go to your room. Let's. and this is 2022. We would like to think that we're a little bit more evolved than that.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know,
I definitely I see conflict in the workplace as well, and we've talked about this. I know we're both big
Mhm.
fans of behavior profiles and helping to understand how people think and receive and process information so that we can communicate more effectively with them. So help me connect where you were with law enforcement and some of those early lessons about communication and about connecting with people and helping them to receive the message you're trying to send, and bring us through that and how you use that today to reduce some of the conflict that you're seeing in the workplace.
Well, that's a fantastic question. What I learned, even though I didn't know I was learning it, is that I am the person who has to change. When I walk into a situation, whether it be law enforcement, whether it be in the business world, I'm the person who has to adapt. Being able to understand where a person's coming from, not so much having a lot of compassion, but being able to say, you know what, I can understand what it's like to walk in your shoes. Taking that, fast forwarding a quarter of a century, walking into a business and realizing that the person who comes to me has an issue or a problem. It is not that time for me to prosecute my own agenda. It's not for me to tell them what they need to buy. At that point, I'm no longer serving. The only person I'm serving is myself. So after long years of understanding that I need to be the person who changes, getting training on, like you said, behavior, being able to communicate in their language, so that way there's no misunderstanding. One of the most important things that I've learned as of late, and you and I both have a fantastic coach, is that sometimes we use words that are ambiguous, but we don't realize it because we use it so much. So if we say many or a few or a couple of, well, in our mind, we know exactly what that means. But as you and I both know, that I say a few, I may mean three. When you say a few, you mean 25. So it's absolutely paramount the fact that I need to be the person who changes, make sure that our communication's absolutely clear, and then figure out what their problem is. Did I
Yeah,
answer your
great
question?
point. And I know we're both big fans of the DISC model as a behavior style tool. Uh, like we say, not to label people, but to help us understand where they're coming from and that language that they speak, as you put it, so
Mhm.
that we can better relate to them and communicate more effectively. So, how does things like the language that you mentioned, how do you apply that when you're working specifically with sales teams to help them grow their sales?
I love the disc model. For me, that's absolutely fantastic. Like I said, we try not to apply a label because at any point in time, something happens throughout our day to where if we are a D, well, we move into an S. And if we've attached a label to someone, it is quite frequently the time that they need us the most that we make the mistake of speaking to them in the wrong language. When we go into the corporate environment, a lot of times, particularly within sales, most have a very direct personality. Let's say they're just having a fantastic day. Well, they move over because they are very much in the people oriented, very fast paced mode. We're speaking to them in the wrong language. They're just not hearing what we have to say. So the importance of being able to go in and say, look, I'm not trying to change you. I want you to understand where I'm coming from so that way you can change yourself. And that's the most important point. Once you begin to learn, okay, this is how I like to be spoken to. Well, you know what? Everybody likes to be spoken to in their own language. I mean, if you look at Dale Carnegie's book, you know, what is the one word that most people love to hear? It's their own name. If we get to the point where we're speaking to them in our own language, we're talking to them in the way that they most reasonably understand, Well, guess what? We're going to do a whole lot more. Even if we don't see eye to eye, we can do a lot more, not only as far as selling is concerned, but the simple collaboration that's required within teams and in the corporate environment. Did I answer the question?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's such good stuff. The I need to change is such a critical concept and so applicable, whether we're talking about work or home or kids or friends. When you
Yes.
recognize that you're the only person that you control, and therefore when you make your changes, that's going to draw people to you or help you be more effective. It's such a game changer to be able to actually connect with people and communicate effectively. So I want to give a quick primer on the disc model, because we shorthand that with D's and C's. Just for the audience, if you're not familiar with disc, essentially there's 4 quadrants and there's 2 axes. So you've got on the right hand side, you've got task oriented people, and then on the left hand side, you've got people oriented people. And at the top, you've got faster paced people. And at the bottom, you've got more deliberative people. So when Joe talks about the D is the fast-paced, task-oriented person who is trying to communicate with or might later in the day become a slower-paced, more deliberative, people-oriented person. Those are very different behavior types, just like that interactive is the fast-paced people versus the slower-paced task, which is the C, are opposites. And when you come at people with one style who are the opposite style, it can really create conflict. And so it's helpful to just step back and assess, hey, are they a faster paced person or more deliberative? Are they more task oriented or are they more people oriented? And you just make that quick assessment of kind of where they are generally. It makes it so much easier to talk with people and communicate with people instead of talking at people, which, as we know, is not great. So we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Joe Pons. Stay with us on the Clarity Advisor Show.
Is your business where you want it to be or on track to get there? Clarity Advisors helps business leaders improve communication and get your team aligned and engaged for greater success. We specialize in helping you streamline your sales and operating systems to improve efficiency and grow your profits. Call or text Ken at 616-822-2998 to have a complimentary 12-minute call to see what some clarity could do for you.
All right, welcome back to the Clarity Advisor Show. We're speaking with sales expert and trainer Joe Pons. Joe, you've led teams when you were in the military. Talk about what you've seen that worked then, that maybe still works, and what things that used to work that don't work as well, especially as you've moved into the corporate environment and now are a trainer and see a lot of different businesses. What used to work that maybe doesn't work so well, and what's a timeless that still does?
Coming from a military environment, particularly the occupation that I had, it was a very much an order based environment. You were told what to do. You may not have been told how to do it, but it was your job to make it happen. Well, that doesn't work very well. It only works with a very small percentage of the population. And quite frankly, I think we have in that regard evolved. That way we understand that barking orders is just not the way to communicate to anyone. Now, that's not to say you need to soft pedal it, because being direct and being very clear, but being polite, that always works, regardless of where you come from, whether you're more task oriented or people oriented, whether you're faster paced, whether or not you're, like you said, deliberative. That's something that's timeless. It's a principle. The fact is that most of the time we use too many words. We as my grandfather would say, why are you going around Robin Hood's barn? This is what you need to say. What's the question behind the question? You
Interesting.
go ahead, and and yeah, I thought at that behind, oh well, another pearl of wisdom from my grandfather. I'll put it away in the mental Rolodex and keep on going. But now, particularly now, my effectiveness as far as sales and in getting other teams to pick that up, time is the one element that we simply don't have enough of. See, when you're not doing anything, you get bored. Why? Because you have too much time on your hands. Once you become more effective at what you're doing, whether it's leadership or sales or just being that go-to person, well, guess what? Now there's not enough hours in the day. And that's where being concise, being clear, but also being polite. Being polite. That's one of those principles that you can't get rid of.
Yeah, one of the phrases that we use at a company I work with is direct with respect. So let's be clear and let's be concise, but there's no reason to be a jerk about it. You can
Right.
communicate that message in a polite way and
That's right.
in a way. We're looking to be effective here. We're not looking to get up on top of someone and win something. The win is accomplishing things together. The win isn't I was right and you were wrong. And again, those are mental shifts that you've got to make if you want to be successful leading teams.
That's right.
So
That's right.
what are some of the other lessons that you've learned over the years, or things maybe that you've seen that we kind of the warnings that we can learn from? What are some things that either you did or you've seen done or you're seeing now in clients that just don't work to lead teams?
Well, let's start with what worked. And I will give this as one of my last opportunities within the military to lead teams. I was able to lead a platoon, which is about 30 people. Half of those were non-commissioned officers. The other half were basically what you would consider the privates, the workers. One of the things that I found most effective is that, one, being clear on what is expected, okay, and when do we need to have it done. Before we get into all of that, let's take care of personal needs. Hungry soldiers are less effective soldiers. Distracted soldiers are less effective. And it's like you said, we don't get paid on being right. We get paid on results. What I found is that being able to address people as people first. One of the adages was mission first, people always. Sending someone for breakfast. While we may say, well, what does that have to do with business? What does that have to do with getting the job done? For some people, that's the only good meal that they will have all day. Let's get it started right. Being able to say, okay, here's the list, copy it down, write it down. Do you have any questions? Is it absolutely clear in your mind what is expected of you and what time we need to have it done? Fantastic. Okay, you know what? Go to work. When you're done, come and get me. I'll review the work. I'm not going to stand over top of you, like you mentioned, micromanage you. If you need help, come and get help. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and say, all right, get it done. Good job. And I will praise you for it in public. A lot of times we keep our praise very, very quiet and our correction very, very loud. It should be the reverse. If you want to make that correction with a person, pull them aside, pull them into the office, make that correction. Like your podcast, having the 10-10 meeting, and you start out with appreciation, that's a need. Now, not everybody needs to have appreciation, but you know what? There isn't a single person breathing who doesn't like a kudo for a job well done. Take care of the need first. Take care of your people as people first. That way you can accomplish the mission.
Yeah, I was just going to say on that with the 10-10 meeting, our daily stand-up meeting, the appreciation is a core value. And so we're living that core value, but also whether an individual gets praised that day or even whether they want to be praised because they maybe don't like public praise and admiration, there's still a culture of it. There's still an environment of it, and it lifts everybody up because it's so positive. And so whether you're being appreciated or whether you even want to be appreciated, just the atmosphere of appreciation makes such a difference. So, well, that's good stuff. And we love talking about the DISC behavior styles and how that applies to life and how you can be successful with that. I'd like to dive in a little more on what you do specifically with Ponds Consulting, helping sales teams be successful. And when you talk about fishing versus hunting, what does that look like? And how do you help salespeople, and what do you see as some of the obstacles to their success?
Number one, identifying the right target market. A lot of times there's a visionary at the top. Usually they're the owner of the business, perhaps the CEO, the C-suite. They've got a mission statement, and that's what they have focused on. Well, once it gets below management, sometimes that message gets a little mixed up. It's not to say that a person's why is wrong, because your why is what drives you. Let's take a step back. When you look at a person in a team, are they part of a team, or are they simply an individual who's just showing up? If we can get rid of some of that conflict, get everybody on the same sheet of music, as it were, and then move forward, boom, all of a sudden things start to change. Dealing with a sales team, people kind of get that blank look when you say lead generation, because it is to a certain degree an ambiguous statement. If you were to Google it, you would get all kinds of responses on what lead generation is. But the fact is that it's basically taking a suspect and making him into a prospect. That's it. Simple as that. It doesn't get to be that complicated. But a lot of folks don't realize that they've got so many positive leads. They've got so many people that they can approach within their target market, but they're not tapping into because they don't recognize that fact. One of my recent companies, a database full of positive leads. These are people who have purchased from them before. I want to say it's an easy sale. It's an easy approach because they already know what you do. They know what you can do for them. All you got to do is just say, hey, look, guess what? We're still here. How can I help you today? Oh, wow. You know what? I lost your phone number. I didn't know who to call. Sale. I had this problem with the last order and I didn't know who to call. Well, let's go ahead and fix that problem for you. Oh, great. Done? All right. Well, let me order 25. Problem solved. Outside of that collective group, the ones that are already internal, these leads are ones that are just ripe, as you would think, for the picking. Well, guess what? Now it's time to look into that immediate target market. The people who would most significantly look at your product and service and say, I've been waiting for your phone call. I don't know where you've been for 25 years, but this is exactly what we need. And whatever widget or service that you provide, well, they're the ones who are going to be most responsive. Once we get that figured out, the rest of it is simply putting things into the process at the beginning and then following it all the way through.
If I understand correctly, then it really starts with getting clear about what it is you do and who you best serve, figuring out who that target market is and what you can do for them. And if you're not clear on that, it's really hard to figure out how to go about finding customers if you don't really even know who you're looking for. Is that accurate?
That is extremely accurate. That's spot on. The fact is that when you walk into a room and you say, okay, what is it that you do? What is it that you do for your clients? And you get all these folks who are chiming in with different things. It's no wonder that you have, that one superstar who's like, boom, I'm killing it. And you got the other people going, I have no idea why this isn't working. Being absolutely clear on what you do and who you do it for, but then being able to convey that, being able to communicate that message in as few words as possible, is absolutely paramount. You hit it right on the head.
Yeah, getting back to that idea of conciseness. So that would be something that you'd go in to businesses and help them get clear on what that we'll call a value proposition is, right? What we do for people. Get absolutely clear about who we do it for and what we do exactly. And once they're clear on that, now we can figure out who we need to reach out to.
Perfectly said. It really is no more complex than that. Now, we like to make things complex because we know our product and service and we want to be able to share that with everyone. Well, it's not everybody who wants to hear about the 200-year-old history of your business. What they want to know, and that goes in not just business, that's life, social, what's in it for me? When you get clear on that message, then it's easy for you to say, well, you know what? This target market over here, yes, we can sell things over there. We can provide a service for them over there. However, listening to what our message is, guess what? These people are absolutely they're just waiting for us. Just sitting back, waiting for the phone to ring, waiting for us to do our business, our sales presentation. And they're going, okay, let's do it. Price for them is not an issue. You're taking it, as the commercial says, it's priceless.
Sure. Yeah, finding that once you've dialed in who that right customer is. But I gotta jump in here because that's where we find the resistance. So we've dialed in it's fairly easy, I'll say, relatively to what we're going to talk about, but fairly easy to get clear on what you do and who you do it for. Might take you a day to dial that in, but you can get there, and it's fairly painless and it's fairly contained. You can do it with yourself or a small group within your company. But now you've identified those folks and you said they're waiting for the phone to ring. Well, that implies I'm going to call them. That's where I think we found that there's a lot of resistance. So talk about how you help people get over the hurdle of actually reaching out to those customers who we now know need what we do, or at least could need what we do. There's a probability of it such that it's worth reaching out to them and making an offer. So how do you get people over that hurdle to go ahead and make some phone calls?
And I'm speaking from personal experience because I had to learn it myself. Number one, it's not about me. It's about them. A lot of times the resistance that we see within the corporate environment is because it's a personal thing. We see the approach as a personal thing. When they say no, they're saying no to us. And that's not at all true. Once we get the messaging right, we remove ourselves from the equation and we make sure we center around what we can do for them. So then when they say no, it's not us. It's the product, it's the service, it's the result that we can provide. If they don't need it, well, guess what? We move on. As they say, it's not show friends, it's show business. So you need to have three things for a proper purchase. One, a need. Two, timing. And three, the money.
Right.
If any one or a combination of those does not exist, it does not matter how good you are, no matter how important your service or product is, you're not going to sell. You're not even going to get the first base. So don't take it personally, because it's not about you. It's about them.
Right. That's so good. I think that's so true, that we've got to really get our head around the idea that we're making an offer that we think is going to help them. We're here to serve. And here's an offer that we think could benefit you. And if you reject that offer, that's okay. And they're not rejecting us personally. That's a key thing to get, to get your mind around. And the reasons they might say no are, like you said, they might not have the money. It might not be the right timing, or we genuinely might have missed and it's not really a good fit for them. And the other possibility is it really is a good fit for them. They just don't see it. And that's okay too. There's plenty of people out there. I like to say we're looking for people who are looking for us. And so if they're not looking for us, that's okay. There's plenty of people who are looking for us. Let's go talk to them.
Yes,
So,
that's
so
it.
Joe,
That's
I know you're a
exactly
learner.
right.
I know you're always looking to fill your cup so that you can go out and pour into others. What are some things that you've been consuming lately, with podcasts or books or audio books? What are you reading these days?
Podcast, The Sales Edge by Joe Peachy. Every Tuesday, Thursday, I've got it downloaded. I'm listening to that. Books. I am a voracious reader. I'm between reading physical books, reading on a device, or listening to audiobooks. It's just constantly going. As of late, uh, rereading Traction, and that's by. I hope he doesn't.
I'll help you here, Gino Wickman, and we'll throw it in the show
Gino
notes.
Wickman.
Yeah.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
Gino Wickman. I always want to say Leo Wickman, but I know that's not right. It's Gino Wickman. Fantastic book. Great for even for people. They say, well, it's more of a corporate big team sort of book. Well, you know what? Even as a solopreneur, there's a lot of lessons that can be learned from Traction. On a more personal level, the power of positive thinking. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Yeah, I love those two books because there's always a gem. There's always something that I forgot to do that it's like, oh, the idea about a person's name. People say, well, I'm so bad at names and faces. Well, you know what? When you get over that, however you need to do it, and there's plenty of mnemonics, there's plenty of training, and that's one of the things that my partner in Ponds Consulting does is helps people with their memory. If I say, Ken, how are you? As opposed to, hey, buddy, what's going on, pal? If I call you by name, our relationship has already started. Another book that I've just, every year, every calendar year, Leadership and Self-Deception by the Arbinger Institute. It helps give me perspective on what most of us consider rejection. The fact is that most people will defend their point automatically. It's like Chris Voss wrote in his book, the knee-jerk response is no. Ask someone a question before they even hear the end of the sentence, no. They haven't even thought about it. But we take it personally. We're going, oh gosh, wow, I must not be a good person. That has nothing to do with it. That's just an automatic response. That's just the way people are built. And to be able to take and put that in perspective makes all the difference in the world, because when you approach someone and they're quickly dismissive, you begin to say, you know what? It's not me. It's not. They just don't either have the need, have the time, or have the money. In either case, guess what? There's someone is, and just like you said, Ken, we're looking for the people who are looking for us. I don't want to waste your time, so I refuse to do so. You ready to go? See you. I'll follow up with you, because at some point, one of those three things is going to change. You either get the money, you'll get the time, or you realize, you know what? Hey, man, I really do need what they are offering.
That's so true. We're going to put those books in the show notes. Those are all great classics. And even, a lot of times we hear those books and we're like, oh yeah, I've read that one. Well, read it again. Like you mentioned, the Leadership and Self-Deception, you revisit that one annually. It's always surprising to me. And I hear this from friends as well, that they read something the second, third, fifth time, and it's like, wait, did they add that? Is this a different edition? That wasn't in there the last time I read.
That's right.
Right. And it's because that book
Yes.
one, there's so much coming at us that you can't take it all in some of these books. And so the second, third time, you're ready for a little bit more. But also the other thing is you've changed, in that year since you last read that book, you're different. Right. And so things are striking you different. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of the rereading. I like to say it's often more helpful to read one book 12 times than 12 books one time. And so, yeah, good stuff. So we'll get those in the show notes. Joe, if somebody wanted to reach out to you to have a conversation about how you might be able to help them with Ponds Consulting, if there's something that might be a fit and that you could bring some value, what's the best way for folks to connect with you?
The absolute best way is to reach me on my direct line, area code 813-541-3994. I answer my phone. And if I'm on another line, just leave a message. And it doesn't have to be anything big or long. Just say, hey, my name is Mike. Call me back, Joe. That's all I need. Now, I do have a free gift. I have an ebook for those who are looking to expand their just a little bit of knowledge, something that I wrote. And you can reach me if you text PONDS, P-O-N-D-S, to 55678. That'll take you to the landing page. Put in your information and say, I want the book. Free of charge. Complimentary on us.
Excellent. Well, Joe, we sure appreciate that. I know the audience is going to get a lot of value from that. This has been a great conversation. You're always a wealth of knowledge, friend. I appreciate you coming on and sharing that with us today. And I know we'll be talking again soon.
Thank you very much, my friend. I hope I brought value to your audience. And at any point in time you need me, just reach out.
Absolutely. Appreciate that, Joe. Thanks so much. And with that, we are at the close of another episode of the Clarity Advisor Show. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Clarity Advisor Show. Clarity Advisors is a speaking, training, and consulting firm specializing in helping you simplify your sales and operating systems to improve efficiency and grow your profits. Connect with Clarity Advisors today to learn more about how they can help you improve communication and get your team aligned and engaged for greater success.